Lock-up fell at 11 with the good manners of an old house. A sigh along the stair, bolts settling without complaint, pipes that knew the hour. Clive, lately assistant manager and not yet easy with keys, made his rounds with a little torch. The old New Inn was generous by day, all pewter and chatter. At night it kept its histories under low light. He checked the lounge, smoothing a ring from a table with his sleeve. He paused by the hearth because everyone paused by the hearth. Great stone cheeks, an iron bar that remembered bigger pots, ash that never quite cooled. Someone had left a chair angled to the fire in the way of men who mean to sit again. He straightened it, then left it angled again, because the room looked wrong otherwise, even to him. The old lintel kept the perfume of centuries of smoke, sweet, almost like apples, and the ash bed breathed a slow warmth that blurred the edge of the grate. Rain stitched at the windows, fine as thread. The house approved of small routines, chairs at angles, saucers on mantels, boots drying in ordered pairs. Upstairs, empty rooms kept their neutrality. On the landing, the carpet held a small hush. Clive listened. From the room above the lounge came the steady tread of boots. Cross the floor, pause, turn, cross back. Not a creak, not a pipe. Boots, patient as a sentry. He checked the ledger. No one booked in that room. He unlocked the door anyway, half annoyed at the prank the house was playing on his nerves. Nothing. The bed kept its hospital corners. The window was latched. The air smelled of polish and the faint clean dust that lives in wardrobes. He stood very still. The tread resumed, directly beneath his feet now, where the lounge ceiling lay. He laughed once, quietly at himself, locked up, and went down again. In the bar, he found Mrs. Ellis, who had worked there since the model village was new. She listened, set down a tray, and said, "Oh, him. He likes to check the line of the room." The line? From hearth to window, left over from when rooms had lines that mattered. She tilted her head toward the fire. "Leave the chair as it is. He sits there when the weather is dirty." Clive did as he was told. The chair kept its angle, making a triangle with the grate and the door. One wet Tuesday he found in a village history, a photograph of soldiers quartered at the inn. One sat by the hearth, head bowed, hands bandaged, a long scar visible under the hairline like a punctuation mark with nowhere to land. There was not much else to learn, only the look of a man resting where the heat is honest. The model village closed at 5, little gates locked with careful miniature clicks. After lights out, Clive walked through with a torch because it pleased him to see Bourton in miniature and still feel like itself. On certain nights, his step found company, a tiny rasp of gravel, the suggestion of a larger weight crossing a smaller world. He learned to stop trying to catch it in the beam and stood in the dark, listening to the little streets hold their breath. "Everything in order?" he asked to the cold air, amused at himself. He could have left it at fancy, and perhaps meant to, but houses have ways of organizing your sense of what is expected. The next week a storm came hard across the fields. Business was poor. Clive set the lounge to rights and, on a whim, placed a candle in an old saucer on the hearthstone, not lit, just there. It looked correct, as a napkin laid ready looks correct. The room changed its breathing. He felt it, as you feel someone enter behind you and know at once. "Sir," he said, keeping his voice at the level of a library, "warm yourself." Air moved, a small, contented adjustment, like a coat slipping off a shoulder. The draft that habitually stole toward the chimney drew back, as if giving way. Clive stood with his hands on the back of the angled chair and found, absurdly, that he had no wish to sit in it. He remained standing until the candle guttered without ever having been alight. When he took the saucer away, a shallow crescent of wax lay at the rim that had not been there before. After that, nights arranged themselves. If the weather blew hard, he left the chair angled and the saucer on the hearth. After lockup, a minute length of gravel would be pushed back into its tiny footpath, straight as a parade. He stopped mentioning any of it to Mrs. Ellis. She knew already and treated knowledge like linen, useful, aired on Tuesdays, folded away. Only once did Clive hear a voice. He had lingered too long at the miniature church. From the direction of the inn, both the great one and its pocket-sized twin, a man's voice said, as if agreeing with a private conclusion, "Right." It was a soldier's word, taught with relief. He went back to the lounge and found the chair no longer angled to the fire but set square, as if inspection were complete. Years later, when his keys had softened the leather of his pocket and he no longer apologized for the torch's squeak, Clive left the inn for a bigger job in a worse building. On his last night, he set the chair to its old angle, placed the saucer, and stood with his hand resting on the mantel. "Everything in order," he said, and felt the room nod. Outside, rain threaded soft through the dark, and in the garden a miniature river took the news quietly and went on its small way.